Welcome to the Build, Tell, Sell podcast, where we have behind-the-scenes conversations about the art of brand building, marketing, and sales strategies with creative industry insiders. I'm your host, Pel, of PELNYC. This episode of the pleasure of talking to Sharifa Murdock, who is the co-owner of Liberty Fair's Capsule, Cabana Tradeshows, and is also the owner of ENVSN Fest, a festival focused around young women's lifestyle and culture. Sharifa has always been hands-on in fashion, from her beginnings at Atrium in New York, also known as the birthplace of Kith, to her time at Louis Vuitton, all the way to her starting trade shows and festivals that have shown some of the best brands in the world. Her signature style of customer relationship and personal experience echoes through all of her ventures. She is a student of the game and pays it forward by mentoring various young women towards actuating their dreams and envisioning their place in business, fashion, and culture. Sharifa, thank you very much for taking the interview. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Oh no, this is great. This is great. So I know you have many positions. I know you have many titles. Just give us the brief.
My name is Sharifa Murdock. I am co-owner of Liberty Fashion and Lifestyle Fairs. Liberty Fashion and Lifestyle Fairs are fashion trade shows. So that's Liberty, Capsule, and Cabana, and also owner of ENVSN Fest.
Okay, and what is the difference between those three trade shows?
So Liberty is a menswear fashion trade show. Capsule is a more contemporary women's fashion trade show. And Cabana is a more resort lifestyle fashion women's trade show. Women's and men's actually trade show.
And ENVSN Fest is?
ENVSN Fest is a basically it's a young person's entrepreneur. It's for entrepreneurs, it's for dreamers, it's for thinkers. It's for young women kind of that grew up like me in the inner city, to help them push them forward towards their goals and get them inspired to figure out what they want to do with their future.
Sweet.
So it's a women's conference for young girls.
That's great. I mean, I think that's very important. I think it's very much needed.
Yes.
Very much needed. So I know you started with a paper route.
Yes.
I know you worked at Key Food.
Yes, I did.
I worked at Key Food too.
Did you?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I worked at Key Food in Queens. So how did you get from working those jobs onto owning a trade show?
I mean, I think it was it's honestly by luck, and it's also by blessings, right? Since I was younger, my parents taught me you needed to work for what you wanted. Like I used to always want things. And I think it was more like, look, things don't just come easy. You need to work for what you wanted. So I had the paper route. And as I got older, I worked at actually McDonald's first. And yeah, I was a McDonald's worker. Worked at McDonald's, then worked at Key Food, then worked at McDonald's again. And then, of course, getting into high school, I was like loving fashion. And there was a store called Atrium in Manhattan, which was one of the best stores ever, still.
Yes.
And the owner of Atrium, who I've worked with since I was 16 years old, he owned Atrium and he was starting a trade show. And then the first trade show we started together was Project. And that's how I got into trade shows.
Well, I remember Atrium. I remember actually seeing you on the floor in Atrium because when I was designing down in VA, we used to come up, and that was the spot to go shop. You used to go there. It's like, what does Atrium have new, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I remember distinctly is when they put up that, was it the Gorillas PRPS flag behind the register? It was a big...
It was like AG jeans with the stars on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Nah, there was one that looked like a Japanese flag. It was like huge.
Yes. I understand. Yeah.
And I was like, this spot has every and anything that's new and trending. If you want, that was the place to dig because
it was before its time. Like
there was no internet digging. It was like you went there and you was like, yo, what brand is this?
Yeah, exactly. It was a discovery place, and that's what made it so special. It was more like, to me, working in Atrium was like, I guess, today's modern way of working in a Gucci store. Like, because it was luxury meets streetwear, which was so,
I know it definitely was ahead of its. That was the first place that I actually saw Miskeen.
Miskino?
Not Mesquite. What's that? The guys from Philly, they had the hand painted shirts before it really became urban. They were doing hand painted T-shirts. That was the first
Yeah.
place that I ever saw it.
Really?
Was in Atrium, because I thought it was a European brand.
They launched so many brands.
Yeah. So, what are the ingredients to you for a good brand?
The ingredients to me is basically having the knowledge, right? I think it's important for you as a designer, or for anyone as a designer, to first educate themselves, right? And I want them to think big. I think when people are thinking bigger than what they really are, it kind of impresses me. I'm not a fan of people that's just like, okay, I'm going to come out with this t-shirt brand and it's just going to be t-shirts. It's like, okay, we've seen that already, right? But I do think that looking at the quality, looking at the way things are made, looking at who is making it and who you're comparing yourself to, and what you really want to do and what's going to be different from what is already out there. Because right now we're so oversaturated with so many different things. For me, it's like, what's going to make your brand pop? And that's what's impressive to me. But mostly it's about the person and the personality of the designer, because I think that gets people very far in life these days.
Oh, wow. In what way?
Because I think that people want to do business with that people want to do business with. So if you like, you're going to want to do business with me.
Yeah, people buy people. They buy into people and personality. True indeed.
Exactly. And I think that that's important. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that when doing business, you know?
Outside of that, what are some of the common missteps that you see developing brands have?
Education, financial education, product education. I think that's why I think for me, a bigger part is to really be aware of what you're doing and who you're talking to and who your consumer is, like who you're trying to attract. I think it's all about education. I think that's a big misstep. As a designer, you need to educate yourself first before you even try to put anything out there.
Yeah, don't just make pretty pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you have touched on, the customer service portion of you being in retail, also trade shows and festivals. What's the common thread that you see between that on dealing with customers?
It's always about, the common thread is about customer service. It's about how you are with individuals. It's about your personality, and do you match their personality? And are you able to, even if you don't match their personality, are you able to still speak to that person without having the same things in common? That's the common thread throughout it. It's always about customer service and the way you treat people.
No, that's very important. That's very important. How can a new brand try to get past some of those big brand walls? And I mean, in the sense of, like, we have people who are doing these incredible brands like a Cold Wall versus doing Off-White. How can a new brand come out and try to aspire to a tier like that? Because I know that there are many walls segmented in front of it.
It's really interesting. I think we're living in a special time. Besides this COVID situation, we're living in a very special time where you can basically come out with something and like blast off the next day, right? I think it's about your content strategy. You see a lot of people on social media popping off because they know who their followers are. They know what they want, and they're engaging with them, and they're able to cater towards what they are asking for. So it all depends on content. I think that it's much easier today than it was before. Before it was like you had to know somebody that knew somebody, right? Yeah. Now it's like you can make yourself be that somebody.
Yeah, the barrier entry is way easier.
And exactly. So for me, it's more about content and making a strategy that's going to work and really understanding who you're trying to get in front of.
Got you. What does Trinidad mean to you?
Trinidad means to me family and home.
When was the last time you was there?
2 years ago.
Oh, that's good. You beat me.
Yeah.
My family's from the West Indies as well. They from Dominica. I haven't touched down there in
You should.
5 years. Nah, I'm overdue. I need a sea bath. I need all of that.
Well, now you're there today.
Nah, true indeed. What's your favorite soca song?
Oh my God.
Give me a good one.
Oh, there's a song, and I don't even remember who the guy who sings it, but it's called Ducking.
Ducking?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to look into that one. I didn't hear that one. Yeah.
You did. It's older. It's like at least a year or 2, 3 years old, but I love that song.
I thought you was gonna say Mighty Sparrow old.
No, he's old. That is old. Very.
What's the hardest lesson that you learned in this industry?
The hardest lesson is that just because you are a certain way doesn't mean that everyone has to follow suit. Mm-hmm. Just because you think you behave on certain morals doesn't mean that everyone has to behave on those same.
True. It sounds like home training.
Of course.
How important is having a mentor to you?
Oh, it's very important. My mentor growing up is now my business partner. I stress to all young people and older people as well to get mentors. I think I thrive on that. I love being able to be mentored to people, and I like that I have mentors that I can go out to, because it's important for you to always challenge yourself and get feedback that is true and not just made up feedback that you want. People that are going to give you the real reality.
No, true indeed. Some people that traverse that path before you, they can give you the skinny on what you need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with you having such a great mentor who now is your business partner, what are the biggest things that you're trying to achieve with ENVSN Fest?
The biggest thing for me, it's a big goal of mine, is to try to help as many young people out there understand that life is not easy, right? I know that today it seems like you can do this and get that really quickly, but there's a process. And I think that what's missing today is that they don't understand that there's a process, and you have to go through that process in order to get to where you need to be. And just to educate and really understand, have them understand that you can be whatever the fuck you want to be. Like, this is the best thing in the world, is like, you put out whatever you want, you can get it. You just need to work really hard. So that's my goal with ENVSN, is to really uplift young women and men to know that we can do what it is we put our minds to.
That's dope. Yeah. What brand outside of fashion would you love, and footwear, would you love, and bags, because I know you worked at Louis, would you love to get your hands on and just like remold them?
Oh my God. I honestly would love to remold Louis. Louis to me is probably one of the most authentic classic brands, but I feel like they've lost their way a little because they're kind of with the segment of trying to keep up with the Joneses. I think that when they had different people at the helm, it was so beautiful. And I am a big Louis Vuitton fan, and I think that they've somehow lost their way, whereas they feel like they need to keep up when they really don't. It's classic. No one can take that away from Louis Vuitton, you know? So
you still have any of the old bags that when you?
Of course. I used to I'm saving them for someone to take.
I hear that. So besides collecting bags, what did you collect as a kid?
Erasers.
What?
Yeah. When I
didn't see that coming.
I know, it sounds ridiculous. Okay. When I was a child, I had obsession, and I have obsession with things in general. But as a kid, I used to collect erasers, like, like not like erasers that you use for pencils, but it'll be like figurine erasers, like different little things. Like or I used to love erasers.
Did you use them?
No, I would not use them. I wanted to.
Hold on. And how many erasers do you currently have on stash?
Oh my God.
You still have them?
Yeah. Yep, they're in storage. All my erasers.
Wow.
No one. So funny, the random things that no one would expect from me. It's the most crazy.
No, I did not. Like, you have me fearing. I didn't see that one coming. That totally left. How has your retail experience helped you in marketing for the festivals?
Well, retail, it's all about customer service. When you work in a retail store, you have to be extremely nice. You have to understand what the person wants. You have to kind of feel their mood out to understand how to sell them on something. And that was one thing I just always took with me. So I always made sure I knew certain things about my clients, even up to today, like when it comes to ENVSN or even Liberty, I know like when someone's getting married, I know when they're getting when their birthday is, so I can always make sure we take care of them because they always support us, right? So it's like you always have to give and take. You have to make sure you're supportive and you build those kind of relationships throughout the year.
No, that is great and that's important. And listen, you popped up in Brooklyn at Ouija Spot when I did an art event, and I was like, oh, Sharifa's here. I done made it. Mama, I made it.
No.
Nah, but
really good event.
No, but seriously, that's very important to support within your circle, you know, and those people that you want to bring in.
You know what it is, and I realized this as I got older. It was like I never had female mentorships. I always had male mentorships.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I kind of lacked is what I wanted to put out, right?
Oh, wow.
Very important for me as a female growing up in Brooklyn to be inspiring for other young girls, you know, because I know what I could have been if someone didn't help me. So
true indeed.
How could I not put that forth, you know, learning that lesson so young to now help others? And that was like the main mission, my core mission. I don't do anything in life unless it's to help and benefit people. You know, I don't want to waste my time doing nonsense that I don't have to do. It's like it has to be beneficial or just don't want to do it.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Seriously, that is beautiful.
Thank you.
She hit us with the tearjerker.
No.
Right after she hit us with the eraser collection.
You're hilarious.
I'm gonna get you a box of erasers.
Love it.
Are there any differences in how you go about marketing the trade show versus the festival?
Oh my God, yes, it's totally different, and I had to learn that along the way. When I first started the trade shows, it's more of a B2B, which is business to business relations, right? So the people know about trade shows within the industry, so it's not as hard, right? Whereas if you're marketing a new festival, it's a total different ball game. It's a total different language. It's a total different conversations when you're speaking to sponsors. You have to imagine starting something new and not having any data. So you have to sell someone on the dream that you have and you're passionate about, and they're looking at you like, yeah, but you're passionate. I'm not that passionate,
exactly.
You know? So it's a really different ball game. And I honestly have to thank, I hired a young girl. Her name is Giselle. She's phenomenal. I hired her when I started the festival, and she honestly was teaching me along the way of me hiring.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really interesting because I know trade shows. I can tell you about trade shows now. But whereas it comes to a B2C component, she honestly taught me and still teaches me. I'm like sometimes looking at her like, are you speaking another language? Like, what are you talking about? But I get it after a while. And, you know, she's really, really pushed it and continues killing it for like what we do on the invention side.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah. I mean, it's also very important to keep on wanting to learn no matter who the person is.
You learn until we're like 90, okay? 100 years old.
True indeed. True indeed.
Stop learning. Every time you think you got it, like even my business partner, Sam, every time I think I got it figured out, he comes with something new. And I'm like, really?
He drops a gem on you and then drops the mic and walks away.
Exactly. So, I mean, we go through the process all the time. And I think it's exciting, honestly. And it makes me inspired because then I know I can teach it to someone else.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you want the synopsis of your book of life to be? To read when it's all said and done, when somebody...
You want to hear something so funny? I was walking this morning because I go out on my morning walks before everyone goes outside, 6 a.m. in the morning. And I was thinking about that because I was reading the Becoming book from Michelle Obama because now it's on Netflix and I'm obsessed and I want to read it before it, you know. And I was like, what would my book be? Because I would love to write a book. And I was just trying to think of what would I write it to be. And it was mainly off of a Beyonce song, which is so interesting. She has a song called I Was Here. And I would love to kind of come out with something like that. It would be like, I was here. And it needs to stand for like, what were you here? When you were on this planet for X amount of days, what did you contribute, right? What did you do? How did you inspire? How did you empower? What did you give to other people? And that for me is legacy. I want to be able to leave some sort of mark in somebody that I did something that was more positive and just was able to inspire someone or push someone to the next realm.
I mean, I definitely can see that in you just with ENVSN Fest anyways, the fact that you really care about giving, that's sounds like a common theme
Yeah.
that I read from you.
Yeah, it's a big
Outside,
deal.
oh no, I mean I see that. Like you, I mean from you doing stuff with Coco and Breezy, you doing the ENVSN
I
Fest,
love
you
girls.
know, like you're always pushing that, and I think it's very important for young women, in general, to have a role model that they can look up to and say, "Hey, I could be like you. You
Yeah.
came from McDonald's and Key Food, and moved it on up, and like look at what you're doing. Like it's not impossible. I can see myself."
Yeah.
Outside of budget, what are
Mhm.
some of the biggest problems that you see that you've come across in marketing?
In marketing, just people not understanding what your vision is. I think your vision is always going to be uniquely to yourself, and you have to try to sell someone on your vision. And if they don't get it, then that's kind of frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it's about, those are the type of problems that I see for the most part, and just getting people to jump on the bandwagon. And another thing is, I don't the following thing. I can't. Like I want, like if someone approaches me about an idea, I listen, I understand, I want to know what it's about. I don't assume and say, you know what, I'm gonna wait until someone else does it to see
Mm-hmm.
if it works. I will take the risk because I really want to really support and understand what you're doing. Whereas I feel like a lot of people are so scared and they move very in a scared way where they're like, you know what, I'll wait till so and so tries it and then I'll try it. And that's just like, to me, that's whack. I hate that. I'm always willing to give people opportunity as long as I feel like it's decent and it's well organized and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of people that they'll be like, you know what, we'll just wait and see how it goes this year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know that when we did Envision, it was interesting. That's what you heard, and it was kind of like, really, you don't think we're gonna do this after all of the other things that I've done? All right, I'll show you.
You know what? I came into Kappa right when they were wrapping up doing the claw
Yay!
thing, right? And I was like, "What is this for?" Because I'm seeing pink and yellow, right? They're like,
Yeah,
"Yo, it's for Envision." I'm like, "Oh, Sharifa trying to go hard."
yeah.
That's what it is. It's like bringing the lifestyle, bringing them in. It's like, okay, I'm going to entertain you, but now
You
over here, teach you.
because you have to understand. Like, I don't think people understand unless you grew up in New York, and I grew up in Brooklyn, not even New York. It was like, for real, it's Brooklyn.
Yeah, Planet Brooklyn.
Like, yeah, it's an ode to my younger self, right? Like, I wish I would have had these tools growing up. I
True
wish I would have
indeed.
had someone being able to listen to some inspirational women that's doing, like, that's about their business, talking about how they made it and how I can try to make it and
Yeah,
get in front of that before, I had to figure it out all on my own. It
yeah,
wasn't that like you had that guidance. It was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do this. I guess I'm going to do that. Whereas today, there's so many women that you can aspire to be because they're in these higher positions. And you can be like, you know what, I want to do that.
yeah.
There's also the concept of like, when you're in college, it's like when I went to college for the freshman year, it was like, you can either be a designer or a buyer. Those were your two options. They never told me about trade shows.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was pushed into trade shows. I was told, this is what you're about to do and figure it out. And that was great. But a lot of young people don't understand that there's so many more options out there than what
Yeah.
they're teaching you or what you know. There's so many things you can do. Like my business partner, Laura, Laura, I've watched Laura grind. We were both like, yo, what are you eating today? What are we eating today? Like growing up in college. And it was like, Laura went from being an intern at Hot 97 to now hosting the morning show. And like,
Oh,
we always,
you went to college with Laura Stiles?
no, me and Laura, I went to school, she went to school, and we just kind of always knew each other. And we
Oh,
would,
got you.
but it was kind of like, what are you eating to, like, we always checked on each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
And, we always talk about, like, everyone wants to be on the radio and they want to know how, like, oh, that's what your job is. That's what I want to do. Like, are you talking to rappers all day or are you talking to people all day? But Laura's like, yo, you know how much I had to do
yeah,
before I got here? And
yeah,
I'm a testament to, I can tell you, she worked her ass off
yeah.
to get where she is today, and that's why she is so successful in the realm that she is. And when I started Envision, she was the first phone call I made because we've always talked about working together. And she was someone that I respected for the hard work that she put in. And I knew she would understand my vision and get it really quickly. and like we figured it out.
Oh, that's great, because
Yeah.
you gotta have that personal bond and the integrity coming up.
No, dope. Like
That's,
one of my favorite people on this planet. She's like super dope. And I love to see girls that work hard and kind of get it, you know?
what are one of the most fondest childhood memories you have of your mother?
Of my mother. Oh my God. So there's a lot. As you know, we're from Trinidad, and my mother was one of those mothers that was very free, and she would go to all the carnivals and all of the different things. And
Mm.
we used to make her costumes for her Juve set.
Oh, your mom was jumping up.
Oh yeah. My mother was literally at like the mass camps and had us in Saturday school so she can go to the mass camp. Like, that's what it was. My mother's a true Trinidadian. Okay.
Oh, wow.
My fondest memories is that but what's so interesting is just like, she always said, like, just have fun with life. She was always very light with everything. There was never anything too serious. You will think it's detrimentally serious, and she'll be like, well, it's not that serious. So that's very fun. We used to make her Juve costumes.
Oh, wow. My mom used to jump up heavy, but I wasn't making no costume for her.
We're making all of the sprinkles and everything that you see. Yes, we were doing that. Me and my sister.
Wow. What is one of the most common problems that you see brands have as far as sales is concerned?
When you say sales, what do you mean?
Them going into the market and trying to get sales.
They don't understand what they're doing. I think the most I'm being honest with you. I think the most common thing is that they don't do enough research. Like, when you come out with a brand as a designer, it's important for you to know who you are trying to attract, and you have to be realistic. I remember, and this happens all the time, so whenever a brand comes to me and say, hey, I want to do your show, the first conversation is, okay, let me see your product. Then it's, okay, who do you sit next to? If you walked into a store, who do you sit next to? Mm-hmm. And then for that fact, what stores are you thinking that you sit next to? And the joke is, we always make, like, it's a funny thing is that everyone thinks that they belong in these certain stores, right? And it's like, really? Have you seen this? Have you gone in the store? Have you seen what's happening in there? And I think it's more about really understanding who's your consumer. Who's your consumer? Also, like, what store retailers are there, right? So if I'm a brand and I want to get into Saks, we're living in the best time. You can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Facebook, you could even go on Instagram at this point and find who is the buyer for it, blah, 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 and do the research. A lot of people don't want to do the research. They just want things to come and walk up to them. And I think that that's a big problem.
Oh, yes. They think that it should just fall into their lap.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
What do you feel like U.S. retailers need to do right now to reinvigorate business?
Oh my God, a lot of work. Because what we've run into is a problem, and you see it now. Like, you know, it's so funny. This situation that we're going through right now, unfortunately, it's a horrible situation because a lot of people are passing away, but it's also opening up a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? So I think when it comes to retail stores, they need to really and truly understand who they're targeting. Back in the day, why there was such success with retail, like in Atrium and like all these other stores, they kind of were niche and they knew who they were targeting, right? Whereas now I feel like one store is trying to look like the other store is trying to look like the other. They're all selling the same things. And then you also got online. So they need to really and truly go back to its beginning and its roots, right? So if I'm going to be a contemporary, and I'm just making this up, if I'm going to be a contemporary cowboy store, let me be the contemporary and let me be the best one. But instead, it's like each person is looking at what everyone else is doing and just copying it.
Yeah.
Like the case method that's not working, you know?
Yeah.
You got to kind of be your own leader in that sense. But
I mean, it's the same thing with brands. Brands, you know, you see somebody like Virgil doing something, everybody wants to start putting arrows and X's on the crossbars on their items as well. They try to figure out that formula and they want to jump into it. What are some of the what influences you when you make a personal purchase for Sharifa?
It's the experience. I'm very experiential. And I, at one point, was a huge retail shopper. Like, I loved going in stores for the experience, but that kind of became lackluster, and it just didn't do it for me anymore. But it's always the online experience now for me. It's like, is it easy? If it's an easy purchase, like a click, 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 I'm in. You won me. It's also giving me a fantasy. It's also about, if I'm going to buy a shirt, right? If I'm online looking at stuff and I see a shirt that I love and I see it paired with a sick pant, then I can go down this rabbit hole. I always give props to like Net-a-Porter, because I think they do it so well. They will bring you down the rabbit hole, spending millions of dollars on clothes, because you'll click on one picture and then it's like, wait, they can do this with that. And then it's like, you keep going down, and then they keep giving you more options and more options and more options. Huge fan.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
What do you think direct to consumers problem is as far as getting into that B2B space?
The direct to consumer method is, honestly, they only know that, right? But then what happens to the B2B? I think the problem, I don't even think it's a problem, to be honest with you. I think that, honestly, you going direct to consumer is good because it's you knowing who your consumer is. Yeah. But you also know who your retailers are as well, that can complement you. I think that the problem is that people try to do too much. They try to get into 1,000 stores instead of only limiting themselves to 50. I think people need to like take their time and really and truly go through the process before they run. Everyone wants to run. No one wants to walk.
You're right about that. What is your definition of a good sales rep?
A good sales rep is a person that knows what is happening out there. And I'm not just talking about in the fashion industry. I'm talking about in the politics space. I'm talking about in the life space. I'm talking about everything, because everything is connected, right? So it's like what's happening now, all of this is all connected. No one can go to work, right? Which means and people are losing their jobs. No one can shop. So now the stores are closed, right? No one can shop. And so none of the brands are working. So what happens to the trade shows? So it's all a trickle effect. Like I think the best thing you need to do is learn what on a global scale is happening, not just where you sit today.
True indeed. What do you feel is going to be the future for the trade shows?
I mean, I think that people always want to touch and feel. And I think after this pandemic, I think people are going to want to come out more than before. I definitely think trade shows like ourselves are going to need to do more in the form of being more digital and being more, giving more options. But I definitely feel like trade shows are going to still be in existence because everyone can't be B2C, direct to consumer.
No.
You still have retail stores. Some may be closing. I think this little wave is gonna get rid of exactly what it needed to get rid of, which is all the fluff. Yeah. So only the strong will survive. And that's where we're sitting with everything.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
And I think like even with the, going back to the direct to consumer, going to B2B, I think that they also have to understand the retail math and how to price their garments to go, because you got to remember this person is trying to get a flip as well. They're trying to make money off of this garment. So sometimes they realize when they say, "Oh, I'm selling this t-shirt for $25."
Yes.
When you go B2B, you may only make $2 profit now based off of your retail math.
Everything.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. True indeed. So
retail math.
Can you drop one last jewel for that new brand that's out there that's trying to figure it out in this big world of ours?
They set your own tone. Really and truly identify what no one is doing and try to figure it out. And I know it's hard to say because it seems like there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, but there is always that one missing link, right? And I think that it's about setting your own identity and really coming out with something that's going to be authentic to yourself and not following the rest of the pack and whatever else is out there.
Oh, thank you. Well, final thing is bless us with all of your handles.
It's not even that. I'm really simple. I'm just Sharifa Says on Instagram. It's really too to handle with all the other stuff going on.
And What about for ENVSN Fest in Liberty?
Oh, yes, at Liberty Fairs, at Envision Festival, at Cabana, at Capsule Trade Show. And it goes on from there.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. The show is available on video at PELNYC, IGTV, and YouTube, and audio in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Please subscribe to the show, and if you feel so inclined, leave us a 5-star rating, and please leave a comment for your thoughts on this episode's insights and ideas. And most importantly, please enjoy life nurturing your creativity.